So it's a while since I've done one of these, and I thought it was so successful doing the 2021 garden tours and doing a little video tour around the garden once a month that I thought I'd keep it going for 2022. So we have just gone into February, and we've been so busy doing all sorts of things, structural things in the garden. It's looking quite different, and so I thought I'd show you how we're getting on and what we've been up to. Here we go. Okay, so not a very thrilling place to start, but start here I will nonetheless. So this is a little patch underneath our lovely apple tree outside our kitchen window, and this worked really well last year. It's just a place to put bits and pieces that maybe were either left over or not so good, and I just planted them in here along with some filled in some gaps with some wildflower seed. I've got some cornflower just over there that I'm going to plant in here. I've already popped in some spare little ammi, and it worked really well. So I've covered some bits with cardboard, so these are going to be bits that I will be just sowing some dried wildflower seed in a month or two. You can already see that we've got some I think those are tete-a-tete little narcissi popping up, and I've got various other narcissi that I have planted around the garden which are popping up, and I've marked out, you can see where I just dug out some turf, popped in the bulbs. Nothing appearing just there yet, but yeah, all sorts of things happening at this end. So now up to the mint. So the witch hazel is looking really pretty. It's nice to see a little bit of colour at this time of year. So as you can see, the mint has been cut back. I still need to give it a little bit more space, dig out some of it. It's so tough that I can be quite brutal with it, but it's just got a little bit. It's been there for a few years now, so it just needs a bit of breathing space. I'm just going to cut out some chunks to give the rest of it a bit of breathing space. But I have made it into two beds now, which the bed was too big last year, and I will be putting in some taller stakes because again I didn't support it quite high enough last year. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. The foxgloves just hanging on in there. Hopefully they'll be coming on soon. Okay, and so looking down the garden, as you can see, we have coppiced the hedge, which has given us an awful lot more daylight. This is hazel and it's going to grow about another 4 feet in a year anyway. But yeah, it's one of those jobs that once we started, we just had to keep going really. And that we hired a chipper rather, the other day, and just chipped everything, which I've now just used on the paths between my beds. So going down this side again, this is a bit of a nothing kind of bed, and I did until fairly recently have a metal greenhouse here, but because of my new greenhouse, which you'll see in a minute, I decided that this has gone to a new home. One of my seed to vase course people took it over from me, and that's gone, so it was kind of in the wrong place up here, but it served its purpose and very useful it was too. Another thing that I've got hold of is my year's worth of compost, and I try and make sure that it's got a fresh bagged up date. So it has just recently been bagged up only last week, a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, 60 bags there to move to the bottom of the garden. So more muscle required. And this is my compost, homemade compost, which I've just been putting a little bit on the beds before I've been planting things out. So that's looking pretty good. A bit twiggy in places, but when you take the twigs out, it's actually quite good. So Anthea and I did a little bit of work yesterday. So this Daucus, autumn sown Daucus, decided it was going to start flowering in the winter. So we've actually just left in 2 or 3 plants of the original autumn sown, and which I obviously sowed too early, I think, and so it went to flower sooner than it should have done. But I have infilled with some later sown Daucus, still in the autumn, but just later than my original batch. So that's just been planted yesterday, and I probably will just pop a bit of fleece or move one of the cages over this one, as it's fairly fresh in the ground. I watered it in. It's been so dry, but yeah, I just did a bit, watered everything in. The Sweet William are looking pretty good in there. So we also planted some larkspur, autumn sown larkspur in there, frosted skies, and a mix, I think. Got a spare bed ready to plant up soon, and some more Sweet William. So biennials are looking pretty good. And if we look on the other side, going back the other way, empty bed, more Sweet Williams. I think I've got 3 beds of Sweet William. Phacelia, I need to prop that up. That's gone a little bit. This happened last year as well. But it's going to be good. It's going to be good. The corn cockle, I haven't pinched it out because I just thought I'll just let the frost have a go at it, but actually it's still looking pretty healthy. So some of those, and I will be pinching out some of those. So it looks like I've lost 1 or 2 up there, but it doesn't really matter too much. And cornflower as well. There's my cornflower. So various cornflowers varieties in there. So I've got a nice stock of autumn sown hardy annuals and biennials, looking good. We still need to reconstruct the sweet pea arch. That's another thing on our jobs list, which hopefully before the next edition of this, the next month's video, that will be done. Okay, looking down on this bed of hardy annuals, some of this needs a bit of work, but under here we have some direct sown, autumn sown Nigella. There's one there, for example, also a lot of weeds. So this needs weeding. There's a couple of leftover ranuncs from last year that have popped up. Empty bed here is going to have, I'm going to plant out my ranunculus in there, the ones that haven't been planted in the greenhouse. These were self-sown corn cockle. My corn cockle were in this bed last year, and these were all self-sown. So it looks like 1 or 2 need a bit of support, but they're fine for the moment. And an empty bed ready for something. I can't remember what I've planned to put in there, but I do have my plan done. Da, 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 da. And on the other side, empty bed. The Ami's taken a bit of a battering with some of the frosts because it was actually quite tall, but I think it'll be all right. So Ami and Hesperus looking good. Let's have a quick peek in there. These nets can probably come off now. I just put them in for the over the winter, so all the Hesperus looking good. And my experiment with the Rudbeckia, Cherry Brandy and Sahara, so I wanted to see if they would survive the winter, and I think we might be alright. So here's some growth here. I've just kept the stems long for a bit of protection, and yeah, it's still early days to see if it's really been worth keeping them in or not, but I wanted to see what would happen, because otherwise they're terribly late to flower, or I find they are anyway. Okay, so the shrubs in the herbaceous border, which I picked through, and I've got some mushroom compost in those bags which just needs to be scattered around. Let's look down where the perennials are. Okay, so walking down the garden, The alliums are really starting to pop up now. So that is Allium Bulgaricum. I'll be interested to see how good they are this year. I have a feeling they might need dividing, and I maybe should have done that last year. And all around the edge, this is all self-sown greater quaking grass, which just goes bananas here. I keep having to pull it out and pull it out. But I do like it, but just enough around the edge is absolutely fine for me. So more alliums of different sorts there. The Cephalon is here, and I should have Purple Sensation and the white one, Nigrum is it, up here, but can't maybe just popping up. And on the other side, I popped in a few red campion. Now they look a bit dinky, so whether they're actually going to come to anything I don't know. Spare bed in the middle. I'm hoping the Thalaspi has self-sown, so I've just left those to self-seed. Now let's have a look at the tulips. It's always a dodgy moment to see if what's come up, if anything, or have they all been eaten. So we seem to have quite a lot of this one, which is Harcoon Darwin hybrid. I think that's an earlier one, obviously. So it's looking hopeful. Maybe some at the end that haven't come up. We'll have to see whether the mice have had a field day. So far, it's difficult to tell. So the raspberries have been cut back, but just need weeding in there. There's lots of red campion. I'm tempted to leave actually. And just planted out some snapdragons, and which were hardened off before I planted them out. Some clary sage and some Gypsophila Covent Garden. I think I will be putting some fleece over that. It's been quite mild actually the last couple of days, but I probably ought to put some fleece over. I'm just got my fingers crossed. Plants tend to be better in the ground with me than me looking after them in the greenhouse and forgetting about them. So I try to get things in early and just let them settle in. Okay, looking down to the perennials, not a lot to show here. We've just cut things back and mulched it using my chomping machine to mulch it and put it on the compost heap. So yeah, not a lot to report. I've got some wildflower, autumn sown wildflower seed. Those are be ready to plant actually in my wildflower area. Everything had got a bit dry, so I just gave them a bit of a watering yesterday, but I need to tip that out now. They've had a nice drink. Ooh, and I must show you my tidy potting shed. Well, it is tidy. It doesn't look tidy, but it actually is tidy compared to what it was. So yeah, I've got all my pots there, all in size order, my trays, the last of last year's compost, vermiculite and perlite, all my labels. So yeah, looking pretty organised for a change. And I have some perennials which I split in the autumn here, ready to give away to my seed to vase people. And interestingly, I've got some muscari that I just popped in these containers to... I thought for a minute I didn't have any, but there they are, they're starting to come up, you can see. I think they must be quite big, these. These are looking quite big. We'll see. I've never grown them in these kind of mushroom trays before, so we'll see how we get on. So some of these things are hardening off. I'll be giving them away this weekend on the first of my Seed to Vase course attendees. So they'll go home with some plants that I've been saving over the autumn for them and grown on for them to give them a bit of a start. So I've gradually been moving things across from this little greenhouse. I've still got my Cyanoglossum, which I gave a good watering yesterday as well, but that's looking pretty good. I love Cyanoglossum. Some Lopi, which I didn't have much luck with last year, but I've got some plants that I'll be again wanting to harden off and plant those out soon. They're fine for the moment. They don't need potting on. Okay, let's have a look at my new pride and joy. So all the chipping from the hedge, I mean, I know it's not very high grade chipping to say the least, but anyway, it's just, we put some weed membrane down and just got something to cover all the muddy bits. So that's all pretty good. And in the greenhouse, so this is a big difference from the temperature. Let's have a look and see what the temperature is in a moment. Okay, so I still need to get a bit of irrigation. Well, I need to get irrigation in here full stop. But I've just planted my well, let's start from this side. So I've got some Nigella in here, and then a little bed of anemones. These beds are roughly 1 metre by 1 metre, 1 square metre. And then 1, 2, 3 more square metres of ranunculus up there, and then on the other side at the end I've got ammi, cornflower, corn cockle, larkspur and clary. Now I'm already learning that I'm going to have to be really on it with the pests and just checking that the green fly doesn't take over. So I try and check every couple of days and really get my eye in, because at first you don't see them, so it takes a while. And I've got various other things here still growing on, a few more snapdragons, quite a lot of larkspur, bit of nigella up there, and then some seeds which I germinated inside. And these are just growing on in the greenhouse. That was just last week, so they haven't been in here long. Some more ranunculus. These are the ones I'm going to plant outside. I'm going to take them out actually to harden off for the next few days before I plant them out. Some nigella, and yeah, a lot of these will be giveaways as well to my Seed to Vase group, who are coming for the first time Sunday, and then another group on Tuesday. So hopefully they will have something to take home with them. So yeah, I'm really happy with my greenhouse. What is the temperature? It's not that warm, but it's warmer than outside. So it's looking like about 13 in here, 13 degrees. So we've also been busy, more shed building. So yeah, my shed has been up since, I don't know, September, October time. And we now have another one, which is going to be for all my husband's bits and pieces. So let's have a look down in the orchard. Won't be a lot to see down here, but it's quite useful just to see how much happens from month to month. Somebody's doing a bit of chainsawing. Look at these lovely snowdrops. Beautiful snowdrops. So everything's covered up here still. Managed to get some of the paths chipped though. We use some of the chippings down here. And I do need to weed this patch here, which has got last year's foxgloves in it. So I'll be interested to see whether they're going to do anything or not. I usually take them out, but I thought I'd leave them in just to see. And that is it for this month's little tour. Apple trees still need pruning over there too. So there we have it, the beginning of February 2022 garden tour. Looking very bare at the moment, but lots of planning going on behind the scenes so that I'm going to have a summer full of blooms. Hope you enjoyed it.